Tesla has been busy this past few months and even last year in trying to produce as many electric vehicles as possible with the high demand, whether in the United States market as well as in other markets, whether in Asia or even in Europe. Now, this past week they have been in the news for all the wrong reasons, for things that they intentionally did and unintentionally did with regards to their charging. They were caught with the recent update of the Model S and Model Y. They were caught intentionally reducing the capacity of the mileage of their EV vehicles. Not only that, in terms of when you're charging it, it takes a longer time to charge your vehicle, which is, to say the least, a very problematic where a company intentionally reduces the battery capability of any devices, whether it's Apple, their iPhones, or in this case, Tesla with their EV vehicles. But in this case, it goes beyond than just the battery that Tesla is involved with. And now, according to Reuters.com, it mentioned here that Tesla is recalling nearly 6,000 vehicles in the United States due to potentially loose bolts. Now, obviously, being a car manufacturer is no small feat that, it takes years, decades to be able to, master uh, production of vehicles. Take a look at Ford, you have GM, Toyota, and many car manufacturers worldwide. Takes decades to be able to build vehicles at a very uh, what would consider a safety vehicle, right? But obviously Tesla has been making headway with their electric vehicles, but obviously the cracks are showing in a sense with regards to the problems that have been cropping out recently, as mentioned. So there were reports that the brake caliper bolts in Tesla vehicles could be loose, which is problematic and could severely harm passengers if there will be in an accident here, and could cause lost tire pressure, which could lead to to accidents and fatality, which we don't want to happen here. And question is, what led to this, and why is it that Tesla release the vehicle that has, I won't say perfect vehicle, but many issues, bits and pieces here. Now, it pertains to the 2019-21 Model 3 vehicles as well as 2020 and 2021 Model Y vehicles. So, Tesla's filing with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NTSA, it had no reports of crashes or injuries related to the issue, which is good. But the problem is the fact that it's cropping out. Eventually it could lead to accidents and fatalities. And obviously Tesla has been dealing with, I won't say backlash, but obviously they've been promoting their vehicle as a alternative for combustion engine, and one of the key features that they're promoting is the ability for the autopilot features. But that's another issue altogether, because the misnomer of being able to say that the Tesla vehicles are autopilot, can be autopilot, is it's not true, because there are five phases or levels in terms of being self-driving vehicles, and they haven't reached to the fifth level, which is the highest. I think they're right now at level 2. And there have been reports in the past that irresponsible drivers are relying more on the autopilot features, which can be catastrophic in one sense. And then now you have uh, parts of a vehicle that is problematic and could be lead to crashes or even injuries here. And as mentioned here, the company mentions that it will inspect and tighten, replace caliper bolts as necessary. But the question is, what led to those issues in the first place? Is there a problem in the production facility? Why are they not able to monitor this and be ahead of the curve here, so to speak? It also mentions that the loose caliper bolts could allow the brake caliper to separate, which is never a good thing, separating in a vehicle, and contact the wheel rim, which could cause to loss of tire pressure in very rare circumstances. Now, obviously, rare is, you know, what is it, 1 in 1,000 chance, 1 in 100,000 chance, 1 in 1 million, and so forth. So even though it's unlikely, there is still a possibility, and you're trying to promote vehicle that is safe, that can be safely driven, not just by a person behind the wheel, but as well as by the autopilot feature here, can be misleading here. And obviously, it goes a long way here of how can it impact in terms of sale. Would people think twice now in terms of buying Tesla vehicles here? Obviously, there are still apprehensions, for many people in terms of converting to an electric vehicle because of its, many limitations regarding of its mileage is one, and charging capability now, still years or decades away in terms of being able to fast charge your devices quickly in terms of, a large vehicle here. Normally takes hours, right? And, it can still compete with the likes of refueling in a gas station with just a few minutes and refill, and then you can go on your way. Anyway, going back to the issue at hand here, the 2021 Model Y vehicle mentioned here with the missing fastener on the driver's seat near the brake caliper here is the main issue here. And it's not just the caliper that's the main issue. Another related article that we have here, they're facing more recalls in their Model 3 and Model Y because of seatbelt and brake issues here. So let's see. So issues such as multiple autopilot crashes, as I mentioned earlier, is already one of their key problems on how to manage the PR nightmare that they have. And now they have to contend with the defective parts of the vehicle, which is, can be problematic, whether it be a short-term issue or a long-term issue for the company here. And recalling as much as almost 8,000 vehicles is no small feat, and the cost that it would entail could be gargantuan. And you can just imagine other markets, right? So you have the caliper issues, and then you have the battery charging issues that they were caught red-handed. And now how are they going to deal with this one? Now they mentioned that the main issue here, or was it, what the heck was it? The main issue of the recall was due to a, what the heck was it? Tesla said to, there you go. The issue stems from the worker's inability to torque each seatbelt into correct places successfully. Now, that could be true, and question is, what led to that issue in the first place? Are workers given ample time to be able to do that, or is it because of the positioning of being not able to reach it and so forth? So it goes back to the manufacturing process that they need to take a look at closely, since it's the problem is on the manufacturing side rather than because of wear and tear of consumer usage in the roads themselves. Is that the main issue here? And how Tesla deals with it is important as well here. Now, another thing that they mention here is it's not just that the torquing issue for the what do you call this, for the seat belt here. Is another issue that they have is the seat belt that they mentioned. So where was it? Stated, there you go. The second issue that they had to face is that the torquing issue on the second row right or left side seat belt retractor fastener, it with its correct specification as mentioned here. So the operator mentions that they might have cross-threaded and the buckle anomaly, which could compromise the vehicle's ability to torque the fastener with appropriate specification. Again, so it goes back to the manufacturing process. So question is, what can Tesla do here in terms of rectifying this issue so that this does not crop up again in any future models that they're producing? Otherwise, concerned consumers, in this case, Tesla owners, would think twice even buying, or even other car aficionados who's thinking or even planning of buying Tesla vehicle in the future would be hesitant in terms of is the car safe? I mean, considering, other car manufacturers are having trouble, obviously, had troubles in the past when they manufacture vehicles. So nothing is 100% safe, but, it doesn't bode well. Build confidence if your car manufacturer can't seem to fix the little issues that crops up in your manufacturing process here. And one of the issues that was mentioned here is that the Tesla workers mentioned this, the problem with the lack of time of being able to finish their tasks properly while assembling the vehicles. Now, obviously, in a assembly line, it keeps on moving from one task to another, so it has to be in sync in a sense. So from the first portion to the very end, so that by the time it reaches to the end of the production line, that a car is finally built. Now, how realistic is the timeline here in terms of optimizing the position, in terms of where are the equipments, how are people utilized here and there? So, they have to really look at in their operations in terms of, reducing cost or maybe reducing time, but at what expense? So being able to optimize it might not be able to do the work necessary. So again, it goes back to quality control here, which is, a big thing regarding, if you're selling it for mass consumption, and in this case could have repercussions, or could have catastrophic consequences if not done properly here. Either way, so the issue is still the vehicle seatbelt or brake issue could make an abnormal noise, which is another problem altogether. Obviously, if you hear weird noises in your vehicle, inside your vehicle while driving, can be disconcerting. So if you're driving a vehicle, you expect to be quiet, so to speak, when you're driving along the road, and hearing weird noises, it will get your attention. And is it because of the brake or the caliper issue, or the brake or the seatbelt issue here? So hopefully Tesla can resolve it immediately before it goes out of hand here. Anyway, next we have Apple. So Apple is a big multi-billion company known for makers of iPhone, as well as iPad, as well as many devices in their ecosystem. Now, one of their latest products that they're able to release is the Apple AirTags, now which we've discussed a few weeks back. Now, for all of its advantages, being able to keep track or find loose items using the AirTags technology is tremendous, right? But I can't imagine how is their product development team not able to identify this main issue, that obviously for all the benefits that their products promote, there's always the opposite side, or the cons or the downside of being used for nefarious purposes. And one of the main issues that was mentioned when it was released at the time was, people could use it to track other people without them knowing, especially if you don't have Apple's, if you're not an Apple user, in this case an Android user, or even if you own an older version of Apple, which is kind of ironic that even within Apple's ecosystem, that they're not guaranteeing the safety of all Apple users here. Obviously, they want you to buy the latest versions of their iPhones here, but regardless, so with those issues that was mentioned before when it was released, so they are trying to find ways to curb the queries or concerns of many of those people or users here. And one way is by simply updating the software, so that it will shorten the time frame it takes before it updates whether there's an unidentified AirTags within your vicinity here. Now, it mentions that AirTags update will make it harder for people to use them for surreptitious tracking. Now, it's easier said than done, because it takes, I think, 3 days before it would update you or warn you that there's an unknown device or unknown AirTag within your vicinity here. But 3 days is too long of a time. So let's see what they did here. Now, there were concerns. Yeah, I think I was here. Yeah, it was mentioned. What the heck was it? There were concerns. Yeah, there were concerns regarding the tiny device could be used to secretly track other people without their knowledge, which is not ideal if you're trying to promote security and privacy here, right? And the question is, they're asking you to fully update your iPhone, which is easy enough, but for other iPhones, it may not be compatible at the time, but now you can do that. And it takes now only 8 to 24 hours from separation, which is still, I still think it's still a long time when you have to wait 8 hours later. By then you have gone home, and if someone was actually tracking you, could have followed you at home and knew where you were living. So I don't know, maybe they need to reduce it even smaller. Maybe in an hour or two it should prompt you, warn you, or give you, they call it, to chime you at some point, rather than wait between 8 hours to 24. uh a lot of things could have happened, and I don't think Apple would want to have this on their public relations agenda when a user was attacked, or whatever, situation could happen, bad things could happen, because simply of the fact the device was utilized, in this case, the Apple AirTag here. And what's interesting here is, it's going to take some time for the Android users here, so it'll be released later this year, so that it'll be able to detect as well Apple's AirTag within the MiFi network. So sorry, now, is it foolproof? Not necessarily, but obviously Apple is leveraging the ecosystem of Apple in the North American regions to be able to utilize it. Now, will it be as effective in other regions? Not necessarily, especially in rural areas, but in high urbanized areas, it would make sense. So if there are a lot of people using iPhones, it's easier to look for misplaced items at very low cost. Hopefully, they could reduce it maybe just an hour or two, so that it would update you right away, so that by the time, let's say, if you went to the mall, before you even arrive home, you'll be alarmed or warned regarding there's a device following you within your persons or somewhere within you, so you can be aware rather than being complacent that you may not be tracked, and then you've been tracked the whole time, the whole time that you were not aware, which is, you know it's not good to anyone here, either concerned, whether you're Apple or a user here, that when you buy it. And that's not the only issue that Apple is dealing with right now. So this is on the consumer side or your customer side. Now you have employees up arms, or frustration is the keyword that they're using here, regarding the policy from their CEO Tim Cook, ordering their employees to return to office, not full time, but still have to go back. Now, obviously, changing a behavior during the pandemic is difficult enough, and then asking them to go back to before the pandemic may be a tall order here. And obviously, you have to strike a balance between cohesion and remote workplace here. And what's the ideal here? Will you be able to return to previous levels or previous scenarios pre-pandemic? I don't think so. So you have to find some middle ground here. And Tim Cook mentions that allowing for 2 days work versus 3 days working remote, you're allowed, maybe depending on the type of job that you're assigned with. Anyway, Apple employees sent a letter expressing their frustrations to their CEO about the return from office. Now, according to BusinessInsider.com, it mentions that asking them to work for 3 days a week may be too much. Now, is it asking a lot? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on the type of work. Now, obviously, there are certain positions or work positions that you could work remotely forever. But again, in a workplace like in Apple, you need creativity, right? Creating products, developing products to sell for consumer. I don't know if you could do that offsite, remotely, even though as Tim Cook mentions, that having Zoom meetings here and there is convenient, yes, but it's not the same as having face-to-face meetings with your colleagues. The interactions themselves is not the same as when you're doing it live, when you're doing work or even at school. It's it cannot replace the face-to-face interaction with your colleagues or your students here. And obviously, if you're an employee, you've gotten used to the setup of working at home, gives you the flexibility of being with your family and doing your work at the same time is tremendous. Now, obviously, others, in this case, workers are suggesting or stating that they prefer to have a more flexible approach where those who want to work remotely can do so. Now, as I mentioned, it depends on the type of work that you're doing in the office. Now, obviously, if you're, let's say, doing maintenance, security, you can do remote work. You have to be physically at at the site, right? But for other positions within the organization, would be case to case. But I don't know, especially if you're in the creative side, product development and so forth. Can you do your work effectively at home versus at the office here? I don't know. But what's concerning here, this has already had serious ramifications for the employees that some had already were forced to, some of the staff were forced to quit because of the situation now. How serious is the issue here? Obviously, Tim Cook could just replace those people who left and find new ones who's willing to work within those parameters here. Now, Tim Cook mentions here that without the inclusivity that flexibility brings, many of us feel we have to choose between either combination of our families, our well-being, and being empowered to do our best work, or being a part of Apple. So obviously, you have to look at both sides and find a middle ground here. Now, obviously, Tim Cook's role here is to usher in or help the business or Apple or the shareholders here gain significant revenue and significant return. And obviously, it's not fair on either side to just to be taken for granted in a sense. But we have to wait and see what will the company, what will Tim Cook do here. We will just use an iron fist and replace those people who doesn't want to, while other companies, in this case, other tech giants like you have Twitter, you have Facebook, are implementing work from home permanent. Now, obviously, those companies have different business models that they're doing. They don't create a actual physical product, so it may not be the same case. But still, if Apple can find a way to alleviate the concerns of many of their employees as to if they're living already in rural areas compared to asking them going back to the urban areas, which would not make sense. So how do you do this? Maybe you can create satellite offices in different cities. Now, obviously, that's going to cost more, but still, you can get people to go back to their offices rather than maybe, let's say, go back to their headquarters and then leave it as is. I don't know. What could be the right solution here? Only time can tell here. But the fact of the matter is, times have changed, people have changed, companies have to change, and everyone has to adapt and evolve. Otherwise, productivity could be low, and this could have a big impact in your performance and eventually your bottom line here. And finally, regarding the movie industry, now obviously movies have been slowly turning out more films as the year within the year. So this would significantly help or boost the movie theaters dilemma here. Now, since last year they've been shut down. Some have tried to reopen. In the case of AMC, tried to borrow money, leverage debt to be able to sustain themselves and entice moviegoers to watch the movies at movie theaters. But obviously, with the pandemic last year, now people are starting to go back out with people getting vaccinated here and there. So, will there still be hope for the movie theaters? Now, according to the article here, we have arstechnica.com. The answer is maybe. There's hope for the movie industry, and as mentioned here, the recent release of A Quiet Place Part 2 is projected to bring in the north of 57 million, almost $60 million here. So, which is good compared to the release of Godzilla vs. Kong, which only earned 32 million early this March. Now, obviously, it's not at the same levels as in a pre-pandemic when films, typically earn hundreds of millions of dollars. But compare that to last year, it's still a big, it's a big earner. That's why, you know, movie studios have been pushing and pushing the or extending the release of several films, hoping that by the time they release it, more people are able to go out and watch the films in movie theaters. Because at the end of the day, where they generate the most revenue is still in the movie theaters, not in the streaming services, right? And especially now the streaming services are very fragmented. Several companies trying to take advantage rather than consolidate it, into one streaming platform. Some companies are trying to be greedy. So, when I want to watch a film, let's say, I don't know, if you want to watch a superhero film, you have to go to Disney or maybe even Warner Brothers. And then if you want to watch what do you call this? If you want to watch, it used to be if you want to watch James Bond films, you have to watch it in a different network, different studios. But now it was acquired by Amazon now, so you have to watch it in different platforms. So it goes back to the main dilemma of when you were subscribing to a cable TV, right? So you have to subscribe to several networks to be able to watch the plethora of films that you enjoy watching. It's the same here in the streaming services. You have 5, 6, 7 streaming services offering their catalogs here, which is kind of confusing. So, for me, I'd rather wait for it to be released in the movie theaters. So at least in the movie theaters, there's no prejudice regarding because it's released by Disney. Only these certain movie theaters can show it. It doesn't matter as long as it's a good movie. Movie theaters will show it either way, which should be the whole point of trying to maximize your experience for the customer, as well as generating maximum revenue for your movie studios here. Anyway, so apart from the Quiet Place part 2 release, the sequel for not sequel, Disney's release of Cruella, the origins of Cruella de Vil story, which is projected to rake in almost 30 million in its 4-day weekend. So that's looking good. And obviously, the box office news comes amidst a glimmer of hope for theaters themselves, not just now, but within the or the succeeding months, all the way at the end of the year. Hopefully, by Christmas, it would bring back the droves of moviegoers who have missed watching films, in movie theaters. Anyway, so such cinemas who can benefit from this is cinema chain AMC Theaters, which mentioned they've been trying to find ways to keep themselves afloat by trying to acquire additional funding by raising the sum of 230 million to expand and grow its business. It mentions that the movie theaters and moviegoers still have a lot of recovering to do, which is kind of true. So we still have to wait and see as the weeks, months, and even years progress, and see how people have changed. How long will it take before people are comfortable going out, not just going out, but watching movies, compressed with a lot of people's watching with other people as well. Now, obviously, people's preferences have shifted from not just watching primarily through movie theaters, but also watching at streaming services. But streaming service is not a complete substitute for the movie experience, especially if for myself, I haven't watched the IMAX experience, but but being in a big theater screen, compared to just watching in your smartphone or even your desktop at home, it's not the same unless you have your own home theater system at home, which is not not many can afford here. So question here is what would happen to the movie industry moving forward? I'm always looking forward to be able to step out and go to a movie theater and watch whatever the latest film is, whether it be John Wick the Fourth or even the Matrix 4 release later this year. So we'll see here. Anyway, that's another episode for today. Thanks again for watching. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. If you enjoyed this type of video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. As always, I'll see you in the next one.